So hello and welcome to Removing Our Invisibility Cloaks. This is set up by Making the Invisible Visible, and it's where we talk to people that live with an invisible illness and disability to find out how it affects them and how they live their everyday life. So today I am joined by Beverly Greenwood, who will be introducing herself very shortly. I currently have my dog in my face. You know, we love our pooches. Just joining in on the fun. And we did do these in the past, so I don't think we've done one for the last 5 or 6 months, just because the pandemic has been hit and miss for everyone. Everyone's been impacted differently, whether it's mental health or their conditions have worsened. So I've had a bit of a break from the interviews, but I'm now bringing them back up because I think it's good to find out about everyone else that lives with a condition, illness or disability. So Beverly is one of those 80% that live with an invisible illness, but she also has a visual aid. So a lot of people can understand that she's got a disability, but they won't know what until she discusses it with us. So Beverly, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Beverly. I'm 51 and I'm the current Miss Beauty Charitable UK, and I live, like many of you, with lots of invisible disabilities.
Perfect. So you've been in pageantry for how long?
I started pageantry in 2019 in October, and then sadly in came COVID. So a lot of mine has been done online as much as we can, really. So I've probably been to three sort of live pageants, as it was. So I'm quite a newbie as in that respect to it, I suppose.
So hopefully, fingers crossed, you can start getting to see the buzz that we get when we're at pageants. So I remember going to my first one and thinking, wow, this is amazing. So hopefully we get that back very, very soon. But you have won a title during the pandemic, haven't you?
Yes, I have. What we did, because obviously, like everybody's pageants, they kept postponing it. So what Miss Beauty UK did is they brought in some new attaché titles, and those titles were for role models. They did we have a Miss Charity, but we have a Miss Charitable, which is somebody that does a lot of more community-based things and helps promote sort of disabilities and things. So I'm the very first Miss Charitable Beauty UK that they have had. So yes, it was quite a nice thing. I mean, feel sorry for a lot of the queens because they haven't been able to hand over, but on the plus side, they've had an extra 12 months. Yeah,
yes, so they've had their title for longer.
Yeah, so they haven't had to hand their beautiful crowns back yet. So we've got is ours. So we've got still quite a way to go, really. So it's quite nice.
Yeah, quite a way to go, but it will go by so quickly.
Yeah.
So your charitable title. So I know that you do a lot with the council, I believe, in your area, and you do a lot for homeless. So do you want to discuss that in a bit more detail?
Yeah, well, I actually got a lot of my inspiration from you, really, Jessica, after meeting you. Some of the girls, I was asked to go to a fashion show in Birmingham, and I was actually quite surprised when I got there that one of the people singing was in a wheelchair, and then I think the amazing Rachel came out in a beautiful bikini showing her stoma, and I thought, oh wow, these girls are amazing. So from that, I then because I've always worked with autistic children and I can sew. So a lady said to me one day, oh, aren't you good with autistic children, aren't you? And I said, well, you know, I do have a bit of experience. And she said, oh, I wish they could sew. So I set up a specific class for homeschooled children, all with autism, to teach them how to sew. But the basic of the sewing is everything has to be donated. So we used bed sheets to make pajamas, and we made bags, and then from that they got a buzz out of it. So we decided to make the bags, toiletry bags, and we sent them to the old people's home. Then we sent them to Cheshire Without Abuse. So everything then sort of grew from there. So obviously that's on hold at the moment. So that was really nice, because autism is such a massive spectrum, and there's lots of things that come with that, and a lot of parts of it, a lot of them had a lot of anxiety because it was trying new things. But to be fair, the parents were worse than the children, because they were more, oh, we're going to get the fingers stuck. And I said, no, you've just got to let them be. And if they catch the fingers, catch the fingers. But obviously they can't, safety guards on. So I did that. And then I involved with a lady I sit next to in bingo, mentioned a little boy called Sol. He's known where we live as Super Sol. He has a very rare form of liver cancer and has had 12 rounds of chemo, I think it is, and 13 rounds of radiotherapy, who just astound us all and is doing remarkably well. He's rung the bell for the first time, and he's still quite a poorly chap, but he's just amazing. So I did a fundraiser for him, and we did an afternoon tea, and we raised thousands of pounds, because what he wanted, his dream holiday, was to go to America, but he's now decided he'd like the money to go into a camper van so he can go all around the UK rather than think about going abroad, which was really nice. And there was loads of food left over, so I got in touch with Northwich in Need, which supports the homeless, to donate these sandwiches. I took the sandwiches down on the Friday to find out they were doing a sleepover. I took the sandwiches for them, and then I stayed out all night, didn't come home till about 10 o'clock the next morning. So I was the first disabled person, I think, in Northwich to have done a sleep out for 24 hours. And then it just went from there, really. I was just quite humbled by how much generosity people have, and people asking you, because we said, don't walk past us, chat to us and find out what we're doing. So everything got donated us for the whole of the sleepover. All the food was then given back to the food bank, because we didn't use it. Well, soup and things we drank to keep ourselves warm, but anything else was donated back. And we raised £6,000 sleep out.
Wow.
And then the following week, we then did a big tombola stands and craft stands and raised another £7,000, and a big music festival. So every pub and cafe in our town did live entertainment for 24 hours to raise another £7,000, and since then I've been involved with them quite a lot. I've then met a lady called Saskia who does Cheshire Without Abuse. Now that is something I do an awful lot for. Everything I do is from donated fabrics and toiletries and things. I don't buy anything. And if we have given any monetary donations, then the money donation goes straight to Cheshire Without Abuse, so they can buy washing machines and things like that. So they are a refuge for women and children who are fleeing abuse. And what they aim to do there is get the families into their own accommodation. Now, they have managed to purchase 5 houses at the moment. So we try to make the rooms look like hotels for them. So I make all the curtains, the beddings, throws, pillowcases, I do toilet bags for them. And obviously the only thing they really get brand new is underwear and toiletries. And the children, they hold a lot of therapy classes, and we've got a little mascot, which is a monkey, and each stripe on the monkey represents an emotion. So if the child is feeling quite sad, he'll might touch a red. So the parent and the child know between each other what each colour means. So if the child doesn't want to actually speak by touching a colour on, they have little scarves that they take around with them. They can touch the scarf to explain their emotion. So should they be in a situation when they're out in public and they're feeling particularly anxious or frightened or worried, they can touch their scarf, touch their mum, touch the scarf, and the parent will know straight away how they're feeling. And this is just help the children so much. So I knit scarves. So yeah, so I'm quite busy really, and I think what it helps me do is take away my illnesses for a bit. It gives me that hour a day or 2 hours a day that I'm doing these things to think about somebody else, because I think it's quite easy to slip woe is me, because my disability came on really quickly. I basically had a chest infection or went into hospital and got overdosed on painkillers, and what happened is then I've now been left with neurological dysfunction disorder, which comes across in many ways. So I have non-epileptic attack disorder, which means I have an epileptic seizure, but unlike an epileptic seizure, I am conscious, but I can't speak. So my jaw can lock, can give me the feeling I'm having a stroke. So anybody on the outside looking in would think I'm having a full-blown seizure. And what it actually also does, it attacks your nervous system. So I have days where I can completely shake. Every part of my body can shake at any time. So the more stressed I get, the more tired I get, the more attacks I have. And these attacks can take 3 or 4 days to get over. One of the other signs that happens to me is I can at any point turn into a child. So sometimes I think I'm a 7-year-old. So I have no understanding, for example, who my husband is. I just know I call him the nice man. I have a 20-year-old son who I just think is my best friend. When my husband says it's your son, I just think it's the funniest thing ever. I am known to have tantrums because my husband won't take me to the park and let me play on the swings, and I will stamp my foot, which he thinks is quite funny. And I have a 3-year-old that lives next door to me, and I got really upset last year because it was his birthday and I wasn't allowed to go and play in the garden with the bubbles. So yeah, my life is quite entertaining when my illnesses are concerned. So some days I can walk with a stick. I can't do the supermarket. I have to use a wheelchair or a scooter. So yeah, so like you say, people see the wheelchair and they see the stick, but they don't realise it's more neurological that's wrong with me. So yeah, so it's quite eye-opening when you suddenly have an illness like that come on over literally overnight. One day be a fit person and the next day it's not something you've grown used to. It's life changing straight away. I think the plus side for me is I'm not a negative person. I just think, well, that's happened, get on with it. But then it comes to the realization is I am going to get worse, and I will be, one day I could turn into a 7-year-old and never come out of it. I may be permanently in a wheelchair, but for now I just make the best of every day and try to inspire other people, really, to make them aware that, you're not the only person, you're not on your own, which I think is the amazing thing about what you've set up, making the invisible visible. Because there are a lot of campaigning like that around my town. I've set up a DPAC, which is Disabled People Against Cuts. Now, these are a national group, so you may be able to Google it and see if there's a local one. And what we do is we fight for the rights of people with disabilities, that's visible or invisible disabilities, for the rights to have access. For example, I can't use my train station because I can't use the platform. So at the minute, it's absolutely shocking. I'm told to get a taxi to the nearest station. Well, I'm British Rail, I'm supposed to pay for that, but try and get them to do that is another thing. So at the minute, we're campaigning with the support of my local MP. It's already been to Parliament once, to fight for the rights of, disabled people need the same rights as everybody else. Why shouldn't we be able to use public transport? We didn't ask for this. Nobody asked for a disability. You don't go, oh, today I think I'll be disabled for the rest of my life. It's, something that's happened. And the fact that most people will know you have to fill in the lovely PIP forms, and they ask you the most degrading questions on the planet. And we're all told, well, surely you can't go to work. Well, if everything was accessible for us, maybe, and I'm sure there's a lot of people would rather try and do some form of work, but the fact that society don't make it easy for us to do. And in DPAC, we don't say we have a disability. We say we have an impairment, because the disability is socially that stops us, that disables us to do what we want. So we say we have an impairment. We like to use that word rather than a disability. So we're doing a lot of campaigning. We do a lot of meeting with MPs, and try and get our voice heard in a forceful manner, but not in a destructive manner. So it is something that we are really, really pushing for in Member of Parliament, to get more disabled people. But the reason it's so difficult is there are so many MPs at the minute in Parliament that won't admit that they have a disability, either it be a hearing aid or they may have autism, and that is the struggle. So if there's people already in Parliament with those issues, you think Joe Bloggs is not going to stand a chance. So we're pushing for all parliamentary buildings to be accessible, and there should be, well, when you have your ballot papers and whatever, they should be in multiple prints. So they should be in Braille, it should be in large print, it should not be a standard print, because it doesn't fit all. So yeah,
the issue with the word, there's such a taboo around the word disability as well. So I know a lot of people because I used to have a stoma, and I obviously have a J pouch now, and so many in that community are afraid to use the word disability because they feel that it means that you're like you've got no ability, but it doesn't mean that. It just means that your life is a little bit different to, let's say, Susan, who doesn't have an illness or condition or anything that impacts her. So I can understand with Parliament, a lot of them hiding their disability because they're afraid of that taboo that is around that word.
Yeah, it's all like understanding, isn't it? I mean, that's what it is. I always think, ask the questions, because knowledge is power, and by having lots of knowledge, we learn things. So if the questions aren't asked, nobody's going to learn, and progress isn't going to be made. But I do think a lot of the younger generation, I mean, I can remember when I'm 51, so I'm a bit of an oldie, but even 10, 15 years ago, autism was, nobody really spoke about it, and then when you look into it, we're all autistic. I mean, I'm actually slightly spinning in my little chair that I'm on and tapping your foot. Now that is actually what a tic, which is on the autistic spectrum. It's just that people who don't have autism, their brains can socially put it in a way that, no, you shouldn't do that, but that's fine. But we have come on leaps and bounds with autism, so it's now more accessible in schools, there's more teaching, and I just think you've just got to push for these things, and the more voices and more things like you've set up, Jessica, is the way forward. I wear my t-shirt all the time, especially if I know I'm going to meet say a local mayor or people in business, because the jumper, first people will look at me and then they go, oh, that's an interesting jumper, and then I'd explain it to them and they go, and then they do actually say, oh, I've never thought of it like that, I've never. And I said, well, if I didn't show you the side where you can see, if you just see the sides of people with the clothes on, I said, that's how, it's just a simple thing. But I'm not political by any means, but I did join the Labour Party just because it was a way of getting my points across. And I did have pictures taken at the Labour conference in my jumper last year, but a lot of people did stop and ask me about it. I could see them looking, and I said, oh, do you want to know about my jumper? So as soon as I saw people sort of looking and going, oh, trying to think and read the writing, I said, would you like me to explain it to you? And they were going, oh, that's really interesting. I've never thought of it. And I think that's just the way to go about it, really.
Yeah, there's not really any visual representation out there. So disabled toilets, they are starting to have the wording on them. But even then, I've still come out of a disabled toilet and had judgment because they still don't know what could be underneath. They still think that people have to have a visual aid, but they don't. And I bet when you sometimes go out without a visual aid, everyone's thinking, well, why she not got a walking stick today? But
yeah,
you have good and bad days. And when we explain our good days, people think we mean a good day is in them having a good day, but our good days are still very, very different.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like being able to walk out and peg your own washing on your line. That's a good day. You know, and people go,
Yeah.
well, that's standard. And you go, no, but it isn't to me, you know. And I think what it does do, we probably appreciate the more little things in life. Because I have noticed all the people that I've met is they don't want grand things. They just, you know, like you say, they want a good day where they can sit outside and play with the children for 10 minutes. To them, that's like winning the lottery. So I do think we are more grateful for our life and the small things in life, which is, you know, a bonus, I think. And then, but I do think it's like I say to people, why should I have to fight? You know, why do they make things hardest for the people who are the most vulnerable? You know, they do make it incredibly hard.
It's like you have to fight for your PIP, you have to fight for a disabled parking badge. Everyone thinks that it's given to you on a plate, but it's really not. There's so many people refuse that benefit because the people that come out to see you aren't actually qualified. They're not nurses, they're not doctors. They come out and judge you as you are on that day. They don't look at your bad days, they look at how you are on that day. And if you're having a good day, they're not going to see how you're impacted.
Oh no, I mean, I had a telephone interview with Universal Credit, and he just happened to ring me, my supervisor, or whatever they call them, and I just happened to have a dippy day on that day. And he rung me up, and I was clearly talking to his child, saying, oh, hello, you my friend Roger, do you want to come to the park with me today? But my voice isn't like that, is like a child's voice. And he said, and then my husband went, who are you talking to? Because I'm not supposed to use my phone. And he said to my husband, I'll call her again. Now, to me, that should have been enough. That should have explained to them what I am like, and there's just possibly no way I could go to work because at any point I could do that type of thing. I then had an interview with somebody, and he said, why, I actually think you could go to work. So I said, can I ask you a question? Are you a doctor? And he said, yes, I'm a GP. So I said, oh, so you're not a specialist then? And he went, well, no. I said, are you a neurologist? No. Right. I said, and then this is the end of the conversation then, isn't it? And he said, I don't think you're being very helpful. And I said, well, actually, you're not being very helpful. You're not a neurologist. You're not a specialist. You've had all my medical records. You're a standard GP. So I said, so I really don't think this conversation can go any further. And I think he was actually taken back that I said, well, unless you are qualified in my specific illness, how can you possibly then tell me what I can or cannot do? So that is just a tip for people. If you ever have to have a phone call conversation from PIP or Universal Credit, you don't have to tell them you are recording the conversation, and you can ask for somebody to be with you. Now, a lot of people don't know that. They think that they can't have anybody with them when they're having telephone interviews, as it is at the minute. You can. If you tell them, if you ask them, can I record you? They will say no. But there's nothing stopping you doing it, because as somebody with a disability, you have the right to have that recorded, because you can use that to say, well, actually, when I had that conversation, because I have a short-term memory, I can't remember the conversation. So I recorded it, and they can't stop you. So please do use that if you have to. Say, I will have an interview, but I require a friend or a family member or partner to be with you and listen to that conversation. They can't speak unless you give them permission, or you can say, I would like my partner to talk for me. Now, a lot of people don't know that, and they will not publicise that. But that is
that's
your
great
right.
advice. That is great advice for the current moment during the pandemic. Everyone's getting stressed out about these telephone consultations, and that is really important to note that you have these rights and
You do.
they can't stop you.
Yeah, no, they can't. I mean, one thing I have done is Googled associations that you can be part of. I used to go to Mind once a week, and I used to do art classes, and it was just really, I went to give my husband a break from me, and just to be with people that if they didn't want to talk, they didn't want to talk, and if they did, they did. And what came from that was I was then asked, could my name be referred to, well, it's Cheshire East and West and Wirral NHS partnership, because I have done like little courses with them, like mindfulness and things like that. And from that, there was posts come up, and I am now a patient governor for mental health and social care.